Welcome to the final Bear era of 2025, celebrating what has been an excellent year, not only for us, but also for the Bears. And of course, we'd be remiss if we weren't mentioning a small matter of a division championship, which none of us really expected in the summertime. But Ciaran, as we kick it off on the final day of 2025, for me, it's the last piece of content for the entire year, which I'm pretty darn excited about. How are you feeling? And you're a heck of a lot closer to it over in Ireland.
Yeah, there's about 24 minutes until I'm officially in 2026. So as we're on this stream, I'll be on 2026. Most of you guys watching, and obviously EJ and Mike will still be in 2025. So I'll tell you what the future's like. But yeah, it's definitely, it was not expected for the Bears to win. And I was thinking earlier on today, just how much 2025 has been such a successful year for the Bears, both on and off the field. And if you told us that in the 1st of January, or when we did a stream like this, I think we did a stream on maybe the 30th or maybe it was the 31st last year as well. If you told us that we'd be talking like this about the team at the end of 2025, I don't think either of us would have believed you. So yeah, no. It is great. We'll obviously get into everything that's happened over the year, but as you said, there's a little division championship that we need to touch on because it was not expected, and it feels a little bit different than when they won it in 2018 because a lot of the teams in the division in 2018 were not very good. Yeah. Like that was when the Lions were not good. The Vikings were up and down, and Green Bay fired their head coach. So that just tells you the division that the Bears won last time versus this time where people were talking about 3 teams making the playoffs at the start, and the Bears weren't one of them. So it just goes to show the feat that the Bears have done and the excitement that a lot of people have for this team, even after a loss, which genuinely doesn't happen. And we're here to talk about it. We're here to take your questions and comments and what you guys thought of both winning the division, but then also the loss to the 49ers, but what it actually means moving forward, heading into the playoffs and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we probably start with the celebration because that's just a happy place to kick things off. And like you said, it's been a very long time since the Bears have been division champions. And it does feel different than last time. It was one of the 2 strongest divisions in the NFL. NFC West was slightly stronger in terms of overall wins, but the NFC North was second in that category. So this is not some paper tiger that the Bears pushed over sort of unexpectedly when they snuck up on everybody and nobody was paying attention and thought they were going to be bad. Again, the 3 other teams in the division were the ones that were expected to make the playoffs at the outset. The Bears were sort of going to be, waiting for a chair, and we thought that would be okay if certain things happened, but the idea that you never really know what goes on with an NFL season. I saw a pretty good post from Mike Sando, who writes for The Athletic this morning, about if you'd told me, before the season started that, and he just laid out a lot of the unlikely things that have occurred in the NFL. What a crazy year it's been, and crazy good for the Bears. And that has been a long time coming for all of you who are Bears fans, new or old. It's not been an easy go. You probably didn't want to wear your Bears stuff out in public on Sunday, definitely not on Monday when you headed back to work. There hasn't been a lot to celebrate with this team, and this year's team has so much to celebrate. Is it perfect? No, we'll talk about that in the, especially focusing on the loss to San Francisco, but this team has come so far from where we thought even it would at the outset if we were looking at our highest aspirations. We were talking about 8 or 9 wins would be great. Winning season would be terrific. If you sneak into the playoffs as a 7th seed, that'd be amazing. And instead, you march in as a division winner, and you've won double-digit games for the first time in a very long time, and done it in a way that, although I wouldn't call it traditional, has been exciting and does look to speak to the future. Maybe not on the defensive side of the ball, but we'll talk about that in time. For now, celebrating as division champions, something we didn't expect that we would get. Again, it's It's been a very good year for us here on Bear Era. I hope it has been a very good year for all of you. Can't thank you enough for hanging out with us, spending your time. We realize there are so many options for Bears coverage. And the fact that you choose to take an hour out of your time and watch what we have to say about it, interact with us, send us questions, hype us up on social media, anything you do to support the pod is felt on this end. I'll just say that. And it's made for a very good 2025. And look, hiring Ben Johnson and him turning the Bears around and making them non-allergic to offense for the first time in a very long time has also made it a whole lot easier on this side. It is a lot more fun to cover this team than it was for the last several years.
Yeah. I went for this podcast, I went to look back at what we would have been talking about. What game we would have been talking about this time last year. And oh boy, was it a doozy. It was the game against Seattle that ended 6-3.
Yeah.
6-3.
Right.
Instead of a loss 41-38. Much different, yes. And you just go back to all the factors that we would have brought up a year ago. Starting off 2025, it would have been like, can the Bears get Ben Johnson? Like, will they spend? Because at that point in time, like, we'll go back, it wasn't until about a day before the Bears got, I think I even messaged you on the day that the Bears got Ben Johnson, where I was like, it seems like things are turning to where he might actually land. But from just to give the listeners a little bit of insight, we were talking for like 2 or 3 weeks, and every single person that was like messaging, talking about it, didn't have Ben Johnson going to the Bears. And we were opening up 2025 a little bit like, if they don't get him, what do we do?
Yeah.
And that one decision and that one change for the Bears has changed everything. Because they brought in Ben Johnson. They then invested in an offensive line. They made picks in the draft that suited the coaching staff in terms of getting guys like Colston, which most people didn't expect. The only time we really spoke about it as a possibility was the stream before the draft, and we said, well, what if it's not one of these guys everybody's talking about, who are potential ones? And I think the 2 guys that we came up with were Colston Loveland and Emeka Ibuka, were the 2 that we kind of spoke about on that podcast the most. Ends up being Colston Loveland, and he's shown just how important he's been. Luther Burden then comes in, and he is playing really good football towards the end. And look, the Bears have multiple receivers that have over 600 yards and multiple touchdowns this year. That doesn't just happen. They have a top 10 offense in pretty much every single metric you look at. And really, that stems from that one decision.
Yep.
In spending the money to get the right head coach. And now, even though this past weekend the Bears didn't win, everybody's talking about this team as they got their head coach and they got their quarterback. And in the National Football League, if you do that, your only other job as a GM is to make sure that your offensive line and defensive line are at least adequate. Because if you got the head coach and you got the quarterback, you've done the heavy lifting, because that's the hardest thing to find. And added to it, the Bears have one of the best O-lines in the league right now, statistically, but also probably one of the meanest. The issue that the Bears have, and we knew this was going to be the case, you can't fix everything in one off season, is they need to improve the defensive line, which should be the priority this off season. But the fact that the Bears have gotten to where they are now, you're going to be able to entice players to come here because they know what's on the horizon, because they're seeing this. And the Bears were never a national story prior to this season. Never. Like, they were, even in years where, like the year when Justin was here, and I think they won 8 or 9 games and people thought they were a little bit on the rise. No one was talking about this team. Everybody's talking about the Bears. You go into any national show and there's at least one segment about the Chicago Bears, and there's a reason. Because everybody knows they have the head coach, and your quarterback is ascending into a franchise quarterback, and with continued development can be your superstar at the position that every Chicago Bears fan has been yearning for from probably the moment that they were born, because we've never had one. And it's just crazy to think all of this stems from one vital decision that the Bears finally got right, that they finally paid the money, and they're getting their just rewards right now with a division title. And who, if you said to us at the start that the Bears are going to win the division, coming into week 18, they'll be the only team in the division with double-digit wins, and really you'll play against the Lions to decide if they're going to be fourth in the division. Like, that's the crazy thing, is that this team has earned the spot that they're in. They've earned the fact that the lowest seed they're probably going to be is 3. If you like, I would have been happy at the start of the year to be 7.
Right.
Like, the fact that you are talking about a team that's going to be either the 2 or the 3 seed, it's mind-boggling to me. But again, it's deserved for the work that they've put in this year, because it's the first time in a long time that I feel really positive, no matter how this ends. Like, and I think I put out something on social media this week. I don't care if this ends with a Super Bowl, if it ends in the NFC title game, if it ends in the divisional matchup, or in the wild card. This team is built moving forward. And yes, they need to improve things on defense, but the heavy lifting for a lot of the important decisions has been done, and looks like they've been identified correctly. There's things that need to be improved on, but this is the first time, I think, in a very long time that this franchise is finally going in the right direction. So I think a lot of us have a lot of things to be thankful for 2025, because it has been the turning point of this team, this organization. The culture is finally where you want it to be, and that's something that we said at the start of the year that we want to fix this year, no matter who comes in. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson's been able to do. And yeah, it's fantastic that that's actually happened, because if you said this was going to happen to me on the 1st of January, I'd be like, you're bullshitting me, there's no way. And they've been able to do it, and you got to give everybody within the organization credit, because we slated them for years when they made boneheaded decisions. So when they make the right decisions, you have to give those guys credit. And if I had a whiskey with me right now, I would be tipping it up to the guy. So I'll let you.
You seem ill prepared, Ciaran. It is New Year's Eve, so here's to the Bears franchise. Here's to choosing Ben correctly and paying up, because they absolutely had to, and then not doing what the old Bears would have done, which was maybe pay the money and then not agreed and had some infighting and said, well, you're the coach, but the GM's the GM. They got together and said, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it all the way. And as you said, that decision has changed everything. And I think that's more important to Bears fans than, like you said, the results of this season, making the playoffs, what happens in the playoffs, whether or not they win a game, 2 games, because the future feels different. We talked about why this division championship feels different because of the competition, but it feels different from within because the Bears are in a very different place, a place they have not been in a long time, a place that feels sustainable, a place that feels like they can move forward and build from this. It feels like all the other ones kind of felt like, hey, lightning in a bottle, good team, caught the right breaks. Who knows what's going to happen next year? This feels like, well, this was good, but next year's going to be better. So here's to the Bears. Here's to Ben. Here's to all of you for hanging in there, and all the success of 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a super chat in there from
this one's appropriate.
Listener.
Yeah,
this is very appropriate. So it says, Ciaran, my co-workers from Kilkenny are visiting me in January. What's a good way to entertain the Irish? Oh, there's a lot of good ways to entertain the Irish.
I have answers. Yeah,
it probably starts with the glass that EJ just had there. Can never go wrong with a good, depending if they're drinkers, which they should be. But if they are, a good night out. We all enjoy a good late night here over in Ireland, but also, yeah, it's very simple. The way to our hearts is food and drink. it's
Yeah.
it's very, and sport. We love our sport here as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's hopefully they'll have a lot of fun. Um, I'm sure they will. But yeah, it's a it's a good thing to that they're coming over, and also I hope that you have enough drink in your house because we go through a lot. Um, I know in the past I've gone to like cousins' weddings in Chicago, and they've had like, I remember I was like maybe 19 or 20 at the time, and I know like that's like not a drinking age in America. Ooh, anyway, um, we and there was a free bar at the wedding, and I literally was talking to one. They had them at different stations, and I remember talking to the barman. And I was like, "Do you realize who's here?"
Yeah.
To the point of, I believe there was a from the photos like after like the ceremony to when they were going back to the hotel where like the dinner and stuff was. Um, the wedding party ran out of booze and had to stop at Binny's to get more.
Not
So
good.
not
Not
good.
good.
But yeah, look, again, we're very simple folk. We like our food, we like our drink, so that's a good way to entertain anybody. To start off, and then yeah, if there's a good sporting event that's going on, maybe if they're coming at the beginning of January, they might dabble into some playoff action.
Yeah.
Support our beloved. But yeah, it's good. It's nice that you get to do that this time of the year as well, and that they get to come over with all the craziness that's been happening in the world. But yeah, it's yeah, it'll be, hopefully you have a good time because I know every time I come stateside, it's always enjoyable.
Yeah. Food, drink, and conversation. Good start for just about anybody, but certainly the Irish. So we will get in a little bit to the San Francisco game because there were good things and bad things. And again, this game felt different. It's a Bears loss, which doesn't ever feel great, but it is a loss with a very different connotation. We talked about it on Bootleg this week. This is I believe, the only game in history, and there's been a lot of games in NFL history that was tied at 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. That's never happened in terms of the NFL, which is kind of crazy. So the fact that basically Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams like just played horse in front of the entire world on Sunday Night Football, and we're like, anything you could do, I could do better, and then just went back and forth. Look, it was defense optional. If you were a lover of defense, this was a very sad game. You probably turned it off. If you were anybody else, and I mean anybody else, San Francisco fan, Bears fan, just NFL fan, you were probably glued to the screen. This is an incredibly entertaining football game. It was off the rails. Nobody could stop anybody, had all kinds of offense. We even had the Jake Tongas revenge game, if that's a thing. He was doing his best George Kittle impersonation. 7 catches, 60 yards, 1 touchdown. Not something I had on my bingo card. But the game really had it all on offense. And the fact that the Bears can go toe-to-toe with any offense that's actually clicking still catches me up. I am not used to the fact that if a team comes out and scores on its first 3 possessions, that the Bears aren't just done and buried. And they were far from it in this game. They looked very, very chipper and ready to respond to every score. And it was like, you kind of got the feeling as the game went on, like, no, this is just going to go like this. They're going to score, we're going to score, and we're just going to see who has the ball at the end. And it did come down exactly to that. Yeah, the last pass short hop by a couple of feet, but everybody in San Francisco let out a sigh of relief, not a big fist bump of, oh, we beat the hell out of you. They were like, whew, we got away with one. We faced early Caleb, and this isn't going to get any easier from here. And because it was a nationally televised game, it was a standalone game on Sunday night, everybody else saw it too. And everybody else that's played the Bears this year, and everybody else that's had to try and hold a lead in the fourth quarter against the Bears, which has not been a very easy thing to do, knows that this team is on the rise and will be better. They know what Ben did in his second year in Detroit. They are projecting that out for the Bears. Make no mistake that this offense will be even more well-oiled and will not have the slow start that it did this year. You talked about Luther Burden. It was funny because on Sunday Night Football, Chris Collinsworth was repeatedly referring to Luther Burden and how he was elite based on some advanced metrics about wide receiver production. And he wouldn't name the stat, which to me was frustrating. But in hindsight, I am 100% sure it was yards per route run, which is one of my all-time favorite stats for wide receiver production. And if you follow my work, you know that I love it. I quote it for guys like Puka and JSN. And strangely enough, those are the only two players in the NFL with more than 25 targets that have a better yards per route run than Luther Burden. Yes, Luther Burden, as a rookie, is third in the NFL in yards per route run. Again, one of my favorite, I think, really telling statistics for wide receiver production. So I think that's the one Collinsworth was really hyping on, because you wouldn't necessarily expect a rookie to be there. And you definitely wouldn't expect a guy like Luther Burden, who didn't eat up in the first part of the year, to be behind only probably the two brightest stars at receiver in the league this year, JSN and Puka. I think that's sort of without question. Those two guys are the brightest lights at wide receiver. And you would expect another name like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, or insert wide receiver you like here. Seeing Luther Burden in third place there is a big surprise, but it is great news for the Bears. And it speaks to, again, Ben knowing exactly what he was going to do with Loveland and Burden. When he drafted those guys, he had a plan. And that's what I said about it. That's what we said about it is, hey, I love the Loveland pick. That was, I think, a good way to get out of the top 10 unscathed. There were a lot of ways to come out scathed, quite frankly, in this year's top 10. I said at the time, I thought the Bears avoided that and that Loveland would be a very good player and that Ben had every idea of what to do with his first draft pick. Burden, I was less certain about, not because of the player, but because he had some up and down. He had a tremendous second to last season at Missouri. He fell off. Some of that was the quarterback play. Some of that was usage, but there were also things that worried me about his game. And we saw some of those in the first half of the season. And then he cleaned them up. They basically said, get right or you're not getting on the field. And he got right. And he got very right, like more right than I probably even projected he could have been. But I think Ben had that plan from the beginning. And this game was sort of the manifestation of this is what I meant. So when you're talking about those two rookies, they combined for 14 catches out of the 25 completions the Bears had, 232 yards and 2 scores. That's production and impact on any level. From two rookies, that's above expectation for sure. And the Bears are going to be leaning on both of those guys going forward. And when you look back at this draft with what's happened with Colston, again, after coming back from injury, Luther Burden, after coming back from a very slow start, and then Ozzie Trapillo being inserted into the lineup late and playing well at left tackle, really stabilizing that position. I'm not saying he's an all-pro. He's not. He's got things to learn, but he played at a more than acceptable level. You look back at this draft, and yeah, they wasted the picks on Shamar Turner and, the linebacker who will not be named on this podcast. But other than that, this is an incredibly strong draft at the top where you want to have your hits. And credit to Ryan Poles and Ben, because they've said this was a collaborative effort. And it certainly feels like it. I don't think Ryan Poles would have picked Loveland and Burden among the top 3 picks, but Ben was adamant about that. And this game is the reason why. So on offense, lots of good stuff to talk about. What stuck with you, Ciaran?
I think the first thing that stuck with me was, and I think a lot of people kind of have mentioned it over the last couple of days, was, and it's something that Caleb's gotten really good at, and we noticed it, I think, in the middle of the season. His hard count has caught a lot of teams off, and again, took full advantage. Like, when you look at when Caleb releases the ball from that, where Loveland is, his awareness of what he needs to do, because he was running the opposite side of the field originally, and then he realizes it's a free play, looks at where Caleb is, and then gets to the end zone. And that's one of the most beautiful passes you'll see. It was a dart from about 50 plus yards. Like,
did that not feel like Aaron Rodgers to you?
It felt exactly like Aaron Rodgers.
In Aaron Rodgers' heyday in Green Bay, which many of us are very familiar with that in a largely negative way, because he was the master. Well, he was the master of that for like 2 years. When he saw the defense jump, he was like, we're going for a touchdown right now.
Yeah.
And he would do it over and over and over again. And you saw the same look in Caleb. Caleb kind of looked down, like saw the motion, saw the flag, and then he was like, I'm just going to roll out here and wait for something to open up, because I'm going deep with this shot, because it's a free shot. And a lot of quarterbacks won't do that. You'll see him spike the ball into the ground, or they just get to the next play or whatever. Caleb was like, oh no, like, I'm just going to dance out here to the right, find some time, and take a rip. And that ball was an absolute rocket.
Yeah, there was that one. The pass to Luther was an unbelievable play. Like, again, what I found, Caleb has done this kind of time and time again, is when they badly need a play to be made, for the most part, it's happened. Like, the amount of fourth down throws that he made in the clutch, like, over the middle, like, it was unbelievable. And look, obviously it was a bit disappointing in the final drive. There was multiple drops where if Loveland or Burden make the catches in that final drive, we're probably talking about the Bears win. But I'm not gonna put any sort of criticism on the offense, because honestly, the only reason the Bears didn't win that game is the defense couldn't stop them, not once. So that's the main thing. On the final drive, I know there's been people that have spoken about the time management, and I get it. But it's not even the last play that's a problem, because Caleb's just trying to wait till somebody gets open, because they were expecting zone, and that's not what happened. And then they knew from the outset the play that they had originally put in wasn't going to work. And it, like Ben mentioned it, Caleb mentioned it, it was a bit of a miscommunication from the outset on that play, which happens. Guys weren't lined up, they didn't have the time, and they just had to go for it and see. And Caleb bought himself time to try and get something to happen, and almost did. But really, when I knew the game was done was the play before, the kind of smoke and ladders type one, where it gets passed off to Swift. And my first thing when I saw that, I was like praying he was just gonna like aggressively go on the outside. And I was like, because if you go on the outside, okay, if they make the tackle, they make the tackle. But when he went on the inside, I'm like, oh, there's a safety there too, and you were less likely to score in that situation. But again, that's a split-second decision that, like, I don't completely blame Swift, because he did see that it opened up just a little bit, and he thought it was probably the best way to get in.
Yeah.
But again, it was just getting to that point of where, like, you didn't have a lot of time left. But I think everybody's kind of felt this, that, like, when you have a chance to win the game at the end, you just almost expect it. And I think that's why there was a bit of disappointment. Like, the Bears drove the length of the field, and they only didn't score from 2 yards. And it's, if they had like 2 or 3 more seconds on the clock, they probably win that game. If there's one catch earlier in the drive that they get, they win it. Maybe if Swift goes onto the outside, they win it. But that's what can happen. But I can bet you one thing, the 49ers don't want to see the Bears in the playoffs again, because they know what the Bears can do. Because they would much prefer playing a team that isn't as stacked on offense or can put up all those points, so that they can get a double-digit lead and be calm moving forward. But yeah, it's unfortunate they lost, and ultimately the only reason that they lost is that the defense played like crap. And it's not so much that the defense is bad or the defensive line is bad. For me, that can happen. Like, we know what the defensive line is. We know there's a problem rushing the passer. For me, it was the effort. To the point of, I think I don't know if I put this out on social media or if I messaged you guys in the group. I just can't remember. But I was like, is it bad? And this was probably the end of the first, start of the second quarter, that I missed DeMarco Jackson. Because I was sick of watching Tremaine Edmonds whiff on tackles, whiff on where he was supposed to be. And just as a bit of kind of insiders, we do read the comments on the videos. And there was one comment from the last video about us talking about Tremaine Edmonds and why we talk about him not being here. There's a reason why we talk about him not being here. I think a lot of people have been swayed by his interception numbers, which happened over basically a 3 or 4 game period rather than the entirety of the season. What you saw yesterday, we've seen at least on 4 or 5 other occasions. And he's making a lot of money to be doing that. And that didn't happen when a backup was in there. And that's a problem. Like, you can find replacement level to do what Tremaine Edmonds did against the 49ers. You're supposed to be a captain of the defense, and you can't help in your run fits, and you're getting absolutely destroyed in the passing game. It's a problem. I don't blame Nahshon Wright, who had a terrible game, because let's be real, like, he could have still been sick during that game because he did have the flu. He was injured going into it as well, and he got picked on, and that's probably a reason he's not going to be here next year, because for all the amazing plays he's made, like, when it comes down to crunch time, like, he will be the guy that they will target. And it was unfortunate, but, like, again, I don't mind a team beating you. Like, the 49ers offense is crazy good. Shanahan is one of the best offensive minds in football. But ultimately, what I can't stand is when there's a lack of energy or a lack of motivation from the defense. And you shouldn't lose a game in which you score 38 points. Shouldn't happen. Like, the offense did their part, and the weirdest thing was when we kicked that field goal, I was like, damn. Because you knew what was coming. You knew they were going to score a touchdown. And the defense didn't, like, they just folded so quick. Like, every single possession, it was like within the first, like, 3 or 4 plays, there was a big chunk play for like 25 or 30 yards. And for me, a lot of that comes down to, I don't know if work ethic is the right, like, adjective for it, or if it's just like the want to, because it just looked like guys were not playing at their maximum when players on special teams and offense were. And like, sometimes, like, someone has to step up, and maybe it is one of those, and maybe Dennis Allen has to take a bit of criticism. I know everybody has been very, very pro Dennis Allen all year, but if you see a guy is not performing to the level you expect, I'd rather him just take him out of the lineup and put someone else in. Like, if you think Tremaine Edmonds is not doing his job properly, put DeMarco Jackson in. Like, you gotta send a message that that's not good enough. That's not the type of football we want to play, because I can guarantee you, if you do that against any team in the NFC in the playoffs, you'll lose. And that's the unfortunate thing, that you don't want this defense to be the reason why you can't make a mini run to at least the NFC Championship.
Yeah. But if there is a reason, it's going to be the defense, and we'll talk about it. So we started off with the division championship and the good things on offense against San Francisco. Now it's time to talk about the dirty stuff, the dirty laundry. And you said it shouldn't happen. If you scored 38 points, you shouldn't lose. Well, if I'd told you before the season that the Bears would march into San Francisco late in the season in a game that really mattered with a lot on the line, scored 35 plus points, and in that 35 scored a defensive touchdown, had 0 turnovers and 0 sacks, and still lost, you would have said, you're nuts. That's a Bears win. Like, there's nothing wrong there. And to that point, those 4 statistics, 35 points plus a defensive touchdown, 0 turnovers and 0 sacks, no team that's ever done that in one game has lost until the Bears did it. So it's not on the offense, folks. They scored plenty of points to win this game. Don't get it twisted. But the overall, Kyle Shanahan just carved up Dennis Allen, which he's done many times in the past. This is not a new thing. But the greatest tweet I got during the game, or actually the greatest direct message, was Kyle. The Bears defense is 11 cats, and Kyle Shanahan has a laser pointer. because he had the linebackers, especially. They were not alone, but especially the linebackers. We've been talking about them in absolute hell. He moved them where and when he wanted them to at will and did whatever he wanted to in their absence. And that was the game plan. And I'm pretty sure that Kyle sat his guys down on Monday or Tuesday of the week and said, guess what? We're going to blow these guys' doors off when our offense is on the field and their defense is on the field. We are going to carve them up. And I'm sure lots of coaches say that every week, but I think Kyle Shanahan said it definitively and very assuredly that, like, Dennis Allen's got nothing. He's going to do the Gus Bradley thing, for lack of a better term. He is going to play very predictable cover 3, and I am going to eat his lunch. And Kyle did. Dennis did, and Kyle did. And that's really what happened during this game. Niners offense put up the 5th best EPA per play of the week in week 17. But you know who was second best? Ben and the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it wasn't the offense, folks. So let's talk about the defense a little bit, because it is going to be the reason this team doesn't advance. If this team doesn't advance, it's going to be the defense. And we need to talk about Dennis Allen, because all year people have said, hey, Dennis Allen's a great coach. He hasn't forgotten how to coach. The problem with what Dennis Allen's done is the rigidity. Dennis Allen's defense works really well when he has high-level players executing it. And so do a lot of coaches' schemes, but Dennis is among that group. He's not special. He's also not, rare in that sense. When he has talent, he can make his defense work. When the talent fell off with injuries, which are a fact of life, I am not going to deny that the Bears defense has been hard hit by injuries. It has. Lots of teams around the NFL get hard hit by injuries. The 49ers, for instance, don't have Bosa or Warner, your 2 leading players on that defense. And they've managed, for the most part, not against the Bears, but for the most part, to hold it up this season after that, when I was sure their season was sunk when those 2 guys went out. And DA just didn't adjust. He just kept calling the same stuff and saying, hey, I expect my guys to make a play. Well, when you have backups out there, you can't do it. You got to scheme them up a little bit. You got to cover them up a little bit. And he didn't do that. So without stars on defense, Dennis Allen all year has been not average. And we keep thinking of him as middle of the pack. He's not. 22nd in scoring defense, and that's the best number of the group. 27th in yards allowed per game, 29th in yards allowed per play. That's not average. That's bottom of the league. And what you can't do in this league is have a bottom 5 defense and win anything. You can have, we've seen it with the Chiefs year after year, you can have a 16th, 18th ranked defense. That's fine. That's no problem. You can give up a ton of yards. Also, not a problem. If you're an okay scoring defense and you're middle of the pack and your offense is good enough, you can win a lot of games. We've seen Super Bowl champions built that way for the last several years. So Dennis Allen has to take a long look in the mirror and see if he wants to change fundamentally, schematically, not just like, hey, reload the roster and I'll do fine. But hey, if you don't reload the roster, or you do and we suffer injuries again, what am I going to do to make us better? I'm not just going to march forward and say, well, my scheme's my scheme, because that's not really coaching. That's roster building, and roster building isn't his business. He's not in charge of it. And that is a problem. And is it a big enough problem that DA might be one and done? I know a lot of people aren't talking about that. It is a possibility in my mind that he moves on after this season, because this isn't the first time we've seen the defense not do fundamental things well. And I don't care what kind of talent you have in the game. If you don't hit and fit, right? If you don't fit the run well and you don't hit with aggression, if you don't tackle, and the Bears tackling against San Francisco was terrible. Tackling does not take talent. Tackling takes like practice and want to. And the Bears don't have it. The reason I know that is because how many times during this game did you see a 49ers ball carrier coming and just know that the first Bears defender was not going to get him on the ground? Just know it. Like, no, he's just going to run by him and touch him with his hands, and then it's going to be up to the next 3 guys to get him down. And you can't have that on defense. You end up with statistic like this. If the first guy just basically waves at the ball carrier, that's not a talent issue. That is, like you said, a want-to issue. That is a fundamentals issue. And the Bears don't have those fundamentals, and it makes the rest of their defense really hard. So without turnovers, and this is an objective statement, not a subjective statement. Without turnovers, this defense would have been one of the worst, if not the worst, in the entire NFL. They lived and died off turnovers, and turnovers regress year to year. You very rarely have high turnover numbers year after year. Some defenses have managed it. There's always a year where it comes due and you just don't get as many as you think you should. Interceptions are fickle, sacks and fumbles, both fickle. And if you're not playing good defense behind that, which the Bears have not been doing, Nashawn Wright is the poster boy for this. He either makes an interception and a huge play, or he gets burned for a large gain. There's kind of no in between with him. He's really hot and cold. And whoever signs him, whether it's the Bears or anybody else, is just going to have to live with that. That's part of his game. So just hoping guys win one-on-ones is not coaching. And everybody's just been kind of going, yeah, DA, he's proven he's good. He's proven he's good. Well, what he proved this year is that he's not capable of adapting, and he needs really high-end talent. Now, do the Bears need to improve the talent on defense? Yes, absolutely, without question. They probably need to use all their draft picks. They have 6 on defense right now. And they probably need to bring in 3 more free agents on top of that. And they need to have a high hit rate, because if you look at this defense, 11 guys, and you go, okay, how many of them, if healthy, would not be replaced? And again, using the sort of baseball metric of above replacement level, right? How many of these guys are average? What's your answer? I have mine. I'll share it. But what's your answer for that question? Healthy, projected starters. How many of these guys keep you from bringing in somebody else for either competition or outright replacement?
2.
Correct. I think that's the right answer.
Not the 2 people that most people would estimate.
Who are the 2?
It's nobody on the defensive line.
Yeah, that's true.
It's none of the linebackers.
That's correct too.
One is, if I'm being realistic, the answer is probably going to be 1, because I don't believe the second guy can stay healthy. And it's Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon.
Correct.
They're the only ones.
Yep. Same answer for me.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, if you've got an outside corner and he's playing well, and Jalen, when healthy, and for the most part, not this year, but for the most part, Jalen's been pretty healthy throughout his NFL career. Kyler, same thing when he's in there, difference maker, absolutely a guy that has the position locked down. If he's healthy and on the field, would keep me from drafting a nickelback. But the bottom line is, didn't really get any games from him this year. You got one partially healthy game where he made a big difference. He got hurt again, and basically ends up getting shut down. You don't have him for the entire season. So he's kind of like a half, but I'm with you. Montez Sweat, big money, good second edge, but not the alpha difference maker that defenses are going to focus on. He never was. Washington fans will tell you that as well. And just because he got the contract, people are like, well, he's the best we have. Well, that's true, but that just means your roster is deficient, not that Montez Sweat is great. He is a good, solid football player. I'm not saying Montez Sweat is bad, but is Montez Sweat going to keep me from drafting any of the high-end edges in the draft this year? Absolutely not. And that's the question, is how many of these guys are ripe to be replaced? And if you're being honest, you watched the entire season, all the tape, the answer is probably 10. And again, I said you have 6 draft picks and maybe you bring in 3 free agents with your money in defense. That's 9 guys. If you had 100% hit rate, you're 1 short. Like a rookie has to step up from year to year. Somebody has to get healthy. Shamar Turner has to figure out how to make a contribution, something, because that's how much need you have on this defense, and it has to turn around. I'm with you. It should probably start on the defensive line. And if we're going back to the silver linings or the good news, this draft has a lot of defensive line talent, both interior run stuffing defensive tackles, which the Bears need badly. You can get them later, and a ton of high-end edge talent, maybe 15 of the top, depending on your estimations, 45 to 60 picks. 15 of the first 45 to 60 guys are probably going to be edges. So lots of good talent lines up what the Bears need, but the Bears have to commit and say, look, we have a serious problem. We might need to make a change on the coaching side, and we've got to build the roster. It's not or, it's and.
Yeah, I think this is like maybe like at what needs or what should happen. I don't think that they will make a lot of these changes. Like, if it's me, I think Dennis Allen will still be here. You're probably going to lose Al Harris because he's going to get a defensive coordinator job somewhere else.
You know what I'd do?
I know what you would do. Yes.
All right. I would lose Dennis Allen and promote Al Harris because I think the defense would perform better.
Yeah. I would not be against the idea. I know Chris Armstrong said it in the chat. What's the defensive solution? Fire DA Al Harris. Like, that's definitely one. Do I think that's what's going to happen? No, I think Al Harris will go to a team and be the defensive coordinator, and we could be here in 12 months' time being like, DA again, the defense, even though we've added more options, isn't here, and then suddenly it might be a different head coach that got fired, that becomes your defensive coordinator. Like if Todd Bowles gets fired, which could happen if the Buccaneers perform as bad as they did this season next season. So you might see something like that.
I actually think that might happen this year. I checked in with my Tampa Bay. I didn't until I checked in with my Tampa Bay guy like a month ago at this point. I said this a week ago, but it was 3 weeks ago. I just said, hey, you're really close to this team. You're with them every day. Like, what do you think? And I said directly, do you think Bowles survives the season? And my answer at that point was, yeah, I think he does. Kind of like you're saying against or about Dennis Allen. And one word answer, it was immediate. He was like, no. And I was like, a month ago? Like, okay. He was really settled. So there are going to be some of those guys available, and it'll make the choice. I will say,
if that is, like, let's say Al Harris does go, and like, let's say the Bears get knocked out at some point in the playoffs, and it's the defense's fault, the pressure will get ramped up.
Yeah.
If you play it, let's just say you get to the divisional round, and it's a game that you deserve to win because your offense was playing really well and your defense was terrible, there'll be a lot of pressure. And then the question is, for Ben, how much does he trust? This reminds me very similar to the LA Rams at the beginning as well, where McVay, when he first came in, had Wade Phillips and had just Wade Phillips. You control the defense while I figure out this whole head coaching thing. But then within, 2 or 3 years, Wade Phillips was gone. And he started getting his own guys. It'll be a similar one for DA. I don't think DA is going to get fired this year, because they'll use the injuries. They know that they did not invest properly on the defensive side of the football. But I will say, if they do invest properly in the offseason and we have similar results, then the Bears don't have another choice. That's what will have to happen. At this point, you go into it, and I think guys like Javon Dexter will still be here. Again, he needs to be better as well. Guys like Billings might be here. I think TJ Edwards will still be here. I think Tremaine Edmonds, I know people have said it in comments and stuff like that. I don't think he's going to be here next year. I think they're going to make that casualty and make that decision that they got similar production from a guy they picked up on the scrap heap at the end of cut down day. They'll do that. Nashawn Wright will go. They'll bring somebody else in. That's a playmaker that'll do his role, and they'll have a couple of their other players back. And for me, I just think that they're going to need to be aggressive when it comes to getting that other edge rusher. And no, I don't mean give absolutely everything to go get a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett, because I don't think that that's realistic. But if there's a guy that they see slipping in the draft to the middle of the first round, I'm not opposed to going up and getting the guy. Like a similar situation to the Rams when they were able to pick up Jared Verse. If you see someone who's at that level and they're falling because teams are overdrafting offensive tackles or multiple quarterbacks are going, a bunch of the receivers are going, and you're seeing the edge rushers fall down, I'm all for being aggressive and going up and getting a difference maker. And that's what I think the Bears are going to have to really look at this year, and see if their guy is falling into the middle of the first round. Like, don't be afraid to make a move. When you're trading up from the back end of the first round to the middle, you're not giving up the same level of stuff when you're trying to move into the top 10. So that's what I would hope would happen. But yeah, defense, there's going to be a big question mark. This has happened before. We saw they gave up 50 something points against the Detroit Lions, or 40 something points against the Detroit Lions, and then they gave up pretty much 40 points against the Bengals, and now they're giving up 41 points. Like, they're the only team in the league that's given up that amount of points, and you're a playoff team. Like, that can't happen. And this is why we've always said, when we knew that the Bears had a chance to win the division, it was great. And my whole point was make the playoffs, because I don't trust this team to really go on a run. And it's not that I don't trust Ben Johnson or what this team has done. And people will say it's negative, but it's not. For me, it's just in the playoffs, defenses do become that more important. And it is more difficult, especially early on in the playoffs, for the offenses. It kind of fixes itself out a little bit later on, as teams are continuously playing week on week. But if your defense becomes one of the worst that's left in the playoffs, unless your offense is doing what they did against San Francisco, against teams that have very good defenses, you're just not going to win those games. So that's what the Bears are going to need to have a good game plan for when they do go into the playoffs here, because they need to make sure that one side of the ball is not letting the other side down in a big way. And that's what we saw. And that's why the Bears are even having to play some of their starters this upcoming game against the Detroit Lions, because if you beat the San Francisco 49ers, you have nothing to play for other than it's a rival and Ben probably wants one over on Dan Campbell. Like, now you have to, like, I know the Eagles are going to be benching Jalen Hurts and probably Saquon and a couple of other guys, so you may get the 2 seed anyway. But like, the fact that you even have to play this final game and win this final game to secure your 2 seed, that's a problem. But it's something, they were never going to be able to
put problem in air quotes, because again, we didn't expect they'd be in the playoffs in the first place. So
no,
arguing
at this point, when you have 2 games to go, and in the first game you score 38 points on offense, that's a game that got away from you. And look, it's better to happen now than in the playoffs. They can come up with a plan to try and circumvent it. Like I said, even if your defense isn't doing very well, you need to limit them so they're not scoring as quickly. Give them less possessions, and give your offense more time to regroup as well. So then every time they hit the field, they can potentially score, and that's what needs to happen. But yeah, there was a super chat there from Nick that wanted to call out for 1999. So look, thank you so much, Nick. Happy New Year's, gentlemen. I'm excited for the playoffs and many more great years to come. I know it's a bit away, but what positions, we've spoken about this, but what positions do you think the Bears will target early in the draft, and what will happen with Swift? Early in the draft: defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, cornerback, safety.
Well, yeah, but in that order, probably. Again, edges, high quality edges get drafted early within the first round and a half, typically. This year, that might expand to the first 2 rounds just because of the number of edge rushers. Not every team. Some teams have 2 good edge rushers that they have paid. So they're not going to draft a 3rd guy necessarily just because he's the best player available. So that, combined with the inordinate supply, that's the way I'm going to term it, because it's the best we've seen in some time, is going to make it so that you might get a guy that is a starter near the end of the 2nd round, which typically does not happen. After the first round and a half, the guys with the top end traits are gone. And if you grab somebody after that and they develop, it's rare. It's possible. But this year, the chances of that are better. So Bears will have to do that early on, maybe twice. And then you can get a defensive tackle in the 4th or 5th who is a run-stopping defensive tackle, and a good one. That's where they go. If you look back at, guys that are playing and have played in the league at high level for many years, a lot of them were 4th and 5th round picks. If you're talking about run stuffing defensive tackles and you're not looking for that pass rushing 3 tech. After that, you got to go for some positions that do tend to hang around: middle linebacker, safety. You can get Bears have gotten good safeties in the 3rd and 4th round. So they're going to have to prioritize that defensive line and sort of work backwards in the defense. But make no mistake, they need talent at every level. They need new linebackers, because neither of those guys are young. And neither of them is playing particularly well. TJ's playing solidly, but again, solidly is not above replacement level. It's at replacement level. I would say Edmonds is playing below replacement level. If you look at his misses, the hits are high level, but again, when you're getting paid that much, you're not insulated from being replaced at that point. Safeties, same thing. Brisker, been healthy this year. But again, he is like Edmonds. He has some big time misses at safety. And when you miss big time at safety, it's points. Kevin Byard, very smart player. I wouldn't mind if he's the third safety on the Bears next year because he's a really good influence on the secondary. He's incredibly smart, but he's not as fast as he used to be. And he wasn't super fast when he got to the league in the first place. So they're able to be replaced. We already talked about the corners. Like, this defense needs talent everywhere. So if there are good players available, you just prioritize the ones you're going to need to get first based on kind of cost and expense and where they typically go. And when that pool diminishes, that's edge rusher at the top. And after that, you fill in the holes, but you have holes. You go all the way down the board, probably picking defensive players. Lots of people have said, oh, we might need to pick up a guard to replace Tooney because he's long in the tooth. Maybe Luke Newman's that guy. You can get guards later on down. This defense is the glaring need. Again, the offense put up 38. That's enough to win by far, and the defense allowed more than that. So you know where your balance needs to be moving forward.
Yeah, obviously we'll talk about it more in the offseason, but there's defensive ends that are going to hit free agency that I would be a fan of the Bears going after. They were interested in already. That would be rotational guys, and you then also draft somebody. Same thing. You mentioned it with Byard. I don't even mind if he's at the beginning of the season, kind of like Braxton Jones this year. Is your starting safety, and then and you've drafted somebody to come in after.
Yep.
Corners. Look, this is the beautiful thing about what the Bears have done this year. There will be guys that aren't in wave one of free agency that will choose the Bears because of what they've seen this year, and they know that if they're on a winning team, they'll get paid. Like Nashawn Wright will get paid this year. He came to the Bears in wave 9 last year. So he's
$1 million a year guy, which sounds like a lot, but that's basically the minimum for a vet.
Yeah. There'll be guys on offense that'll do, and this is why I'm not too concerned about the offensive side of the football, because you're gonna have the same starting O-line. You're probably going to have the same running backs at the beginning. Maybe they'll bring somebody in and maybe they make that decision, but I think that's maybe a year down the line at this point, just based on how Swift and Monungai have played. Depending on if they want to keep or move on DJ Moore, your wide receivers for the most part will be the same. But what you will see is there'll be depth O-linemen, there'll be depth receivers, there'll be depth running backs and tight ends, where agents will want their clients to come to Chicago, because if you have a high-powered offense, even if you sign a one-year deal, you might be able to get a little extension from the Bears or make a boatload of money somewhere else in a year's time. And that will happen, and that is a benefit of the Bears being good and of people believing in Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. So, there will be names. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Boye Mafe, who's going to be a free agent from Seattle, who doesn't have a lot of sacks but gets a lot of pressure and is at least better than
I would not be sad about Mafe. I know he's not Dennis Allen's type, but I like Mafe coming out. I like what McDonald does with him in the defense. Mm-hmm. You're right. He's a very good player that the Bears could use. He is not the alpha type. Again, that's the one you'd be drafting with your probably first round pick, but he is a guy you need, because again, you need 3 good edge rushers and the Bears have half of one, or maybe 2 halves, in a half of Sweat and a half of Booker, who is playing well and has had some flashes and would be good as a third edge in a rotation if you had 2 other guys. So they still need a guy like Mafe to come in and take downs and be a threat. So lots to talk about in the offseason as we talk about roster building, but thank you very much, Nick, for the super chat. We just got another one from Dat Guy, $5. Do the Bears make a run for Hendrickson? I doubt it at this point because of age mostly. Hendrickson's still going to command a good amount of money. He's past 30. GMs get touchy about paying those guys. If they were one player away, even on defense, they might. If they're being honest, they know they're far more than one player away on defense. So I think they're going to have to spread their resources around because he's still going to need a big deal. So it's not that I don't like the player. It's that I don't necessarily like his fit with the Bears for where the Bears are right now.
It might change I'm not going to say for Hendrickson, their decision-making for this might change if they do get to the NFC Championship game, and they feel like they're
Yeah.
close.
I hope it
Like,
doesn't. That's the
yeah,
Washington disease. That's the worst thing that could happen. I
but
would love it for the publicity in the Bears, to be fair, as a fan. Sure, it would be great to run to the championship game. Washington did it last year. They were a year early. They made assumptions based off that, and it wasn't correct. The core of their team was not there, and they fell to pieces this year. They were shell of themselves. So different reasons for that, but the Bears could put themselves in a very particular situation where they think, oh, we've got it. They make one big swing when they need 7 or 8 or 9 mid-level swings on defense to really raise the floor instead of trying to raise the ceiling, and they could get themselves in a spot that's tough to get out of.
Yeah, I think they will. Like, they could burn themselves. Like, but if they go for a high level guy, I don't think it would be Hendrickson. I think they'd be more likely to try and kick or like trade for someone that's in that upper echelon. But again, I would be more inclined if the Bears want to be aggressive and get in a defensive end. I'd actually rather them move up in the draft and get their controllable guy.
Heck of a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper, and look, you gotta. They always say you gotta trust. You have to trust like the staff that you put together, like that you can find someone, and especially in this class. So that's why I would much prefer. Look, I know everybody wants a Max Crosby and stuff, and that's going to be a big one that everybody's talking about because he seems to want to get out of Vegas. But like, you kind of need to be at the point of where you're not paying your defensive end like crazy money right now. You would much prefer having, if you want to be aggressive and getting somebody, just move up in the draft. Get up. You don't have to get into the top 10. Let's say you get to like 14 and someone has fallen to that point that you can think can be a superstar edge rusher. Like, you go up, pay the price. I'm fine with that because you then have a controllable guy for 5 years, and you're likely not trading 3 first round picks or 2 first round picks for that guy. So I think that's the way to do it moving forward. One of the other questions here that I think is definitely pertinent right now, because we've spoken about the game last week. Obviously, the Bears winning the division, going into the playoffs, but N Blah 95 says, obviously we know Ben's answer, but would you guys rest the starters for week 18 if you were in charge? I'll go first, because I don't know. We haven't spoken about this, but I'll be completely honest. I don't give a crap if the Bears have the 2 seed or the 3 seed, because I'd rather. Now, I don't think you would rest all your starters. If it was me, anybody who has been limited at all in practice this week would not play, because I need those guys playing in the wild card round, and I need those guys being healthy. The last thing you want to do is, like, let's say Luther, for example, has his quad injury and looks good for the majority of the game against the Detroit Lions, and suddenly in the fourth quarter something happens and he misses the wild card game for one where the Eagles are playing their backups against the Commanders. Now they're playing their backups too against the Eagles, but if the Eagles lose and you lose or win or beat Detroit, it doesn't matter. You're still in the same spot. And I also think the same thing. If you're number 3 seed or number 2 seed, to me, I know people talk about like the extra home game, but like the Eagles could end up losing when they're in the 2 seed, and then you get that extra home game anyway. So I don't know. For me, I'm not one to rest all the starters. So like, I would still want the likes of Caleb and stuff to play, because you don't want guys having 2 weeks off. You want guys being prepared. But if there's somebody that does have an injury or has a little niggle that you would think an extra week of rest and kind of like a bye week would really benefit them for getting healthy for the playoffs, that's what I would do. And I know it's against a lot of people when they talk about this team for this last game and what they want to see in the 2 or the 3 seed, but to me, I don't think there's going to be much difference between if you're the 2 seed or the 3 seed. Like, you're going to end up playing the same teams. And like, I will say, if the Bears don't win in the wild card, I'd rather them lose to a LA Rams or San Francisco 49ers than I would against Green Bay. But I do think that the Bears play Green Bay at Soldier Field. I think the Bears are on the ascendancy, and Green Bay have struggled the last few weeks. So I'd still feel pretty confident about the Bears getting through the wild card round, but still, I'd be more inclined to letting guys that aren't fully healthy, or that are limited at all in practice this week or have a DMP. I'd be like, just, you're not playing this week. Sit down and get those guys ready to go for what's now the most important game. Is not against the Detroit Lions. It's against either the Packers, the Rams, or the 49ers in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I'd play most everybody. I'm with you. The people that I would hold out are people like Rome, who maybe, hey, this isn't a tested out type game. If you need to test it out, sit for this game. Yeah. It doesn't make a difference. Everybody else, I'm leaving in, right? If you're good to go, or you're in a state where you would play, everybody's nicked up at this time in the NFL. The biggest lie right now is that anybody is healthy in the NFL. Nobody's healthy. Everybody's nursing some level of whatever. It is a long season. It is an incredibly physical sport. You don't get to this point in the season and be like, yeah, I feel great. Everybody's dealing with something, but it's the level of what they're dealing with. So if, like Ciaran said, if extra rest will help, or there's a higher chance of re-injury in this game, you hold those guys out. If you're healthy and you'd play on a regular week, you play. I need my guys out there driving. They didn't play well enough last week to take a week off.
Nope.
Like, that's not the thing. If they'd blown San Francisco off the field, yeah, I'd sit Caleb for sure. 100%. But they didn't. Like, Caleb did his job. I'm not saying that, but the rest of the team, this team needs to play as a team. They need to keep that iron hot. They need to keep working. They need to stay out there. They've got stuff they can get better at. Go through a regular set of meetings, not like, oh, don't look at me, look at the backup. I'm not playing this week. Like, they don't need that interruption. This is another week. You are driving towards the goal. And I don't really care about the outcome of that wild card game, but I do care about being as ready as they can be for it. If they get beat, they get beat. I actually think that's fine, because it's not about this year. They're not winning the Super Bowl this year. If they do, I will be stunned. I will come back on this podcast and say, I did not think this team was a Super Bowl winning team. And it would be a huge credit to Ben and these guys if they win this championship. Like, that would be unbelievable. And I truly mean that as I would not believe it. I think it's about next year, right? So again, be as ready as you can for this year. Go as far as you can. Play as hard as you can. But save the guys that, if this was get in or don't, everybody plays. They're already in. They won the division. Like, it's a question of who they play, and all the teams in the playoffs are going to be good. That's what the playoffs are. So it doesn't change that much, and you need to keep the rhythm as a team. You need to be out there hitting. The defense certainly needs to fit the run better. They need to tackle better. Like, get back to basics. Call guys out in the film room, same as you have all year long, every week. Stay in that rhythm, except for the guys that are dinged up, might have a higher chance of re-injury. Those are the guys I'd hold and say, hey, it doesn't really matter for this game, but I do need you a week from now. So, like, get right. Like, real hard.
And I also do, I do believe in the whole, like, with confidence and stuff, that you want to be heading into the playoffs winning. So you want to get that win against Detroit, knock them down to the fourth team in the division, where they belong. That's what you want to be able to do. Also, I didn't think this was going to be a conversation that we'd be able to have, but like 4,000 yards is right in the reach for Caleb. And if I was Ben Johnson, I'd be trying to air the football out and see what you can do. Because look, I'll go on the other side of this. If I was Dan Campbell, I would not be starting my starters, because you're out of the playoffs.
You're done. Yep.
If you play St. Brown, Goff, Hutchinson, any of those guys, and someone tears an ACL, they're out for most of next year.
That's the part that I totally agree with you with. Like Hutchinson and Goff, especially. If you play those guys and the worst thing happens, they don't miss the offseason. They miss 3 quarters at best of next year, which is a serious setback for an organization that doesn't have anything to play for this year. So 100% with you there. Different situation, but yes, I would agree. And like I said, if the Bears had won a couple of the close games that they've lost this year and they're marching in as the 1 seed at this point, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Give your guys the week off. Let everybody heal up. Let the backups get some playing time. That's good for everybody. Those guys' agents love it when they have real tape to put on as auditions for other teams. All that stuff makes sense. It's not the position the Bears are in. They're in a sort of middle position. So take a middle position on your injuries and say the most injured guys get an extra week of rest. All the rest of us keep pulling the sled. So speaking of pulling the sled.
Even if they wanted to do it, even if they wanted to do it where, like, if they're not sure on, like, Luther, like, if you want to limit his snaps for the game to make sure that he still gets a bit of playing time to test everything out. If things are fine, he can play. If there's a little bit of a not sure while he's out there, you kind of put him on a bit of a snap count and be like, okay, we're just going to make sure that you're still moving around and you're still feeling good, but we're not going to put too much stress on you because you need to be ready. And like you said, guys like Rom, they shouldn't play. Like, he hasn't played in weeks. So what's one more week? Just get him ready for the playoffs.
Yep. Get them all polished up. Again, hit that as hard as you can, play as hard as you can, see what happens, roll the dice. Once you're in the tournament, you never know. Team gets hot. Cool. It'd be legendary. It'd be awesome. Even if they went to the NFC Championship game, it would be legendary. That is for a first-year head coach, really, really admirable job. So with that, we're going to play Mike on the mic, and then we're going to answer all your questions and get out of here because we know that you probably have New Year's plans wherever you are. We certainly have some of our own, but we'd be remiss if we didn't let Mike have the mic for one last time in 2025.
Thank you, EJ and Ciaran, and welcome in, Bears fans, to another edition of Mike on the Mic here on the Bear Era podcast. I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your New Year's holiday, and it is a time to celebrate because 2025 was a great year for your Chicago Bears, and there's a chance that 2026 can be even better. The conversation has become, what should the Bears do this coming up Sunday against the Detroit Lions? And more specifically, what should the Bears do in order to put themselves in the best position come playoff time in just a couple of weeks? Well, I went and did some research, and it is time to bring on the yellow legal pad. Since 2020, when the 7th seed was added to the NFL playoffs, the number 2 seed is 9-1 against the 7th seed, Dallas being the only number 2 seed to lose to a 7th seed. The 3 seed is 5-5 against the 6th seed. Now, no matter who the Chicago Bears play, it's going to be a tough out. And it's even tougher when it's a division rival you're playing for the 3rd time in the season, let alone when it's the Green Bay Packers. But history and math tell you that the best spot to be in, the best position to allow yourself to get one step closer to the Super Bowl is the number 2 seed, even if that means playing the Green Bay Packers one more time. So, as far as this Sunday is concerned, there's 3 things you need to do. 1, you have to come out fast. 2, play disciplined, smart football. And 3, come out healthy. Now, if the Chicago Bears can do those 3 things, take care of business, and beat the Detroit Lions, securing the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs, they will be starting off 2026 with their best foot forward. And I hope each and every one of you puts your best foot forward heading into 2026. I hope it is a prosperous, healthy, amazing 2026 for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for making 2025 so great for us here at Bear Era. Thank you so much for all the love and support for what was a great year personally for me in 2025. Hopefully, it's a great end of the year for the Chicago Bears and an even better beginning for our beloved monsters of the Midway. Please enjoy the festivities, enjoy the Week 18 slates of NFL games, and more importantly, enjoy your time off with friends, families, or by yourself as we ring in the new year. We'll see you next time right here for a playoff edition of Mike on the Mic on the Bear Era podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Now back to EJ and Ciaran.
I don't think anybody in Chicago is happier than Mike right now. He gets to do a playoff version of Mike on the Mic. He is a new dad, as the hat states, and enjoying a first New Year's as a family. So congratulations to Mike and his, and to all of you as well. I echo Mike's sentiments. I hope that 2026 is as good for you as 2025 was for us. And that if it's that, it will be an exceptional year for all of you. With that, we'll get to a bunch of questions. We've answered a bunch of them. A lot of folks love the yellow legal pad. We too love the yellow legal pad. I don't think it's going anywhere at this point. It's become a fixture, and an organic one of my favorite kinds that happen in any piece of content that people just go, hey, I like this random thing, and it works out. So we will have the yellow legal pad going forward. Fear not. Let's see. One from Nick that says, yeah, when was the last time you felt so good following a loss that wasn't for draft positioning? Yeah, again, what I feel most excited about is that it feels sustainable, and that the rest of the teams are taking note. Like, do not think that the rest of the NFL didn't see that game and the other 5, 6, 7 games this year where the Bears had a lead in the fourth quarter and they were, glued to the tape, right? That they watched after Sunday and went, oh my God, like either they almost won that or holy cow, they won that. Nobody wants a piece of the Bears because of that right now. They are such, to steal a term, a wild card, right? They're not a wild card in terms of the playoffs, but they are a wild card on the field. It is random. And if you give the ball back to Ben and Caleb with 4 minutes to go, even if you're up by 7, you don't feel good. You do not have a settled feeling on the other sideline. You're like, well, they've been here a lot this year, and more times than not, they've come away with a victory. So, you don't ever feel good for a loss, but boy, that was a loss by about 2 feet. That last ball short hop by about 2 feet. Like, I didn't think they should have won it. They didn't play well enough to win it. But I also knew that the 49ers were breathing a sigh of relief, not beating their chests about the fact that they had, stomped the Bears into the turf, which, if we're being honest, for the last several years has been the thing, right? It's been, yeah, we expected to beat them. We beat them handily. We feel good. We're on to next week. This was, we skated. We got away with one. And the teams that have beat the Bears this year, which there are not that many of, strangely, that's weird to say, I think kind of felt the same way, most of them. And the teams that lost to them were like, yeah, it was close and maybe we shouldn't have lost that game. But I think next year, everybody knows maybe we lose that game handily. Maybe we're not even close in the fourth quarter because we know the advancements that Ben's going to make. We know, hopefully, the jump that Caleb's going to make with basically the same offensive structure for the first time in his career for 2 years in a row. Everybody is predicting an upward trend for this, not regression, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, if it's me heading into the playoffs, look, I think the Bears will end up with the 2 seed. And obviously it means even another game against Green Bay at home. But it's strange to think, but even since the game that the Bears beat Green Bay in, I think the Bears have gotten much better than when, and that was only 2 weeks ago. We just seem to be on that upward trajectory, and look, I know they're not going to play all their starters because they have a bunch of injuries and things like that, but they are struggling. And that's a team that if their name wasn't the Green Bay Packers and it was something else, everyone would be like, you got to get the 2 seed and play them because they're not one of the top teams in the NFC right now. And look, Green Bay they're not going to win the NFC because there's teams that are just more equipped for winning it. But I will say, if the Bears end up with the 2 seed, I hope that the 49ers end up with the 1 seed. And the reason for that is I would rather not have to play the 49ers until the very end, but also I would rather than play a team that has a good defense that could potentially knock them out.
Yeah.
Because if you, like, I feel like even though the Rams and the Seahawks, their offenses are legit, but you've seen that if you get the Rams and they have to come to Soldier Field, Stafford hasn't been the same in those cold weather games this year. He struggled more often than not, and that might be a time where you could beat the Rams. Against Seattle, it's very up and down. Like we saw what happened to Sam Darnold last year for the Vikings when he got to the playoffs. Things that went south. So I would rather get to play the Seahawks or the LA Rams versus ahead of what we saw from the 49ers, because I think the 49ers, they'll be able to do what they did. They'll be able to score on you at will. If you cannot stop either the run or the pass, I think you probably have a better opportunity at some of the other teams that are in the NFC right now. I think obviously the Bears will not fear the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they've looked much better, because when you've bullied a team before, you know you can probably bully them again, and you'll come out and try and do that. And look, they'll try and stop it, but I think when you've had that confidence of you've beaten a team before, you kind of know what you need to do, and this time it could be at home. So again, it's the only team currently in the NFC that I would go into a game being like, that one's going to be tough, it's the 49ers, just because they seem like they can score at any point. And while Seattle have had games where they've been like that, they've also had games where I know the score kind of flatters them from last week, but they weren't very good against the Carolina Panthers last week. And then you look at the Rams, one week they look like the best team in the NFC, and then the next week they're struggling. And I'd rather take my chances with one of them versus a 49ers team that you know that they could probably score 40 points every single playoff game that they play. So if it's me and the Bears do get the 2 seed, I think would prefer the 49ers get the 1, and at the very least you play them at the very end and it's another hit and hope, because I don't think they're a team that matters if they play in the cold, because they did it the last couple of years when they went to Green Bay and Philadelphia and stuff like that. So I think I'd rather face LA or Seattle in those situations, but that's what makes the NFL exciting, that the number 1 seed is still there for the 49ers, where they get to play against Seattle. And then we still don't know, is it going to be Carolina or is it going to be Tampa, that they have to play each other for that division as well. So you get, obviously in the AFC, you get to see the Baltimore Ravens against Pittsburgh Steelers as well, like Lamar sneaking his way into the playoffs potentially, and it's what makes this year fun. There's not an obvious answer for who's going to make the Super Bowl, and I think that's good for us as fans, because obviously we want the Bears to make it, but if the Bears don't, it's going to be a really enjoyable set of playoff games, because there's no team that you're like, well, this team will just dominate all the way through. There could be a team that in the wild card or the divisional round that look unbelievable and then put up like 10 points in the championship game and not make the Super Bowl. And like that's what we want. We don't want it being obvious heading into the playoffs on who's going to win. And yeah, it's exciting times, but we've said it before. The Bears have done their part. They've punched their ticket there, and that's all you could have asked for. And now, for me as a fan, they're kind of playing with house money, because no one's expected them to get here, and they just need as loose as possible. They need to be able to play. Like, don't get all tensed up because it's the playoffs. Like, you weren't I know they won't feel this way, but like, you weren't expected to make the playoffs. You were expected this maybe in a year's time. So like, there's a lot of players that are on our current roster that have never played in the playoffs, and that is a little bit worrisome, because experience is important. But again, they just need to go out there and try and enjoy the experience of playing playoff football, because most of them that are on the roster right now have never done it. And if they play like they do on a weekly basis for the most part, they're going to give themselves a chance to to progress at least through to the divisional matchup.
Yeah, in terms of just playing loose, I don't know if you've ever heard the story, but when Joe Montana was in the Super Bowl, and it's the final drive where he's going to catch to Dwight Clark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the huddle, and he starts off the huddle, and he goes, "Hey, man, look, it's John Candy. Like, John Candy's here." And everybody in the huddle's like, "What's the play with the final drive? Like 2 minutes ago, like, what are we doing?" He's like, "Look, it's John Candy." And when Caleb started off that last drive in San Francisco, I said out loud, watching the game here, "Oh, look, it's John Candy," because you knew he was going to get close. And that's the kind of confidence they're playing with the ball at the end of the game right now. So last question we're going to take for 2025 is this time next year, we'll be talking about Caleb's contract. This is from Chris Armstrong. Thank you, Chris. Assuming he continues to improve, what kind of dollars are we looking at? And the bottom line is top of the market. Like, you're not getting him for less than top of the market with, again, assuming he continues to improve, but already with what he's done this year, he is a difference maker within the top 5 in the NFL. It's not the top 5 most efficient quarterback, not even close, but he is somebody that scares you with his legs, with his arm, and his ability in the clutch to win at the end of the game. And that is an unquantifiable characteristic monetarily in the NFL. If you have that ability, and Caleb clearly does, he has as many fourth quarter comebacks in 2 years as any Bears quarterback in history. He's played 2 years, and he has as many fourth quarter comebacks and wins as any Bears quarterback ever. The Bears have been around a long time. He clearly has that ability. So the bottom line is top of market. Whatever the top of the market is, whatever the Bears can sort of carve off of that with his agent, which is more about guarantees and how it's structured. And quarterback contracts are really interesting. They're all unique. They're like gloves that fit their owners. There is no boilerplate for top of the market. Like, every quarterback contract in structure and team and fit and guarantees and bonuses and when things get paid and what's allowed and whatever else are very custom tailored to the team and the individual. Caleb's team will get whatever they want for the most part. The Bears will be lucky to get any concessions because Caleb's played extremely well. And he hasn't hit his ceiling yet. Everybody knows that. There were open misses again against San Francisco. He still almost won the game, but there were wide open misses that would have sort of blown the doors off that game. If he starts hitting those, which lots of quarterbacks didn't until their 3rd or 4th or even 5th years, you're talking about a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And a top 3 quarterback in the NFL gets whatever he wants in terms of money. So it's going to be... It's going to be 2 things. It's going to be as expensive as it possibly can be, and it's also going to be worth it because there are just certain things you can't buy, and Caleb has a bunch of them.
If the Bears are smart, when it comes, I agree with you. Whatever it is at that time, whether it's 70 million, it doesn't matter. But the one thing that the Bears do need to make sure that they do is they need to jump the gun before.
Oh, as quick as they can.
The other teams, because
it just gets more expensive. Yep.
But you also need to remember that in the same time period, the Commanders will be paying Jaden Daniels, the Patriots will be paying Drake May, and the Broncos will be paying Bo Nix.
Yep.
So like, all those guys will get their extensions. Yep. So the Bears, when they can and when they're allowed to start talking extensions with Caleb, which I believe is towards the end of next year that they can do it.
3 full years.
Year.
Yep, yeah, 3 full years.
If the Bears are smart, they unofficially will be talking to his agents to try and get, and you make it clear, it's like, look, we're not going to come in looking for discounts, anything like that. We just want to get this done and get everything locked up in time, because the last thing you want is, oh look, Bo Nix gets paid. Oh look, Jaden Daniels gets paid. Oh look, Drake May gets paid. And suddenly what you were looking at, $72 million a year, is suddenly $80-something million. Yeah. Like, get ahead of those other teams.
Yeah, and set the curve. Like, if history tells us the same thing, be the first, set the curve, be the top of the market quarterback deal, because you will very quickly be the 5th most expensive deal. Whereas if you're the 5th one to sign, you'll be the most expensive, and it'll stay that way for a longer part of the cycle. Completely agree with that. As we get ready to close out 2025, just a huge thank you to all of you. I know I said it earlier and I can't say it enough. I'm going to say it again. This was a labor of love when we created it. We didn't know if anybody would watch. The fact that people show up and interact and say they enjoy this content week after week is a big thing for all of us here. We deeply appreciate it. And it's because of all of you. We would not be here without you. It is still a labor of love. We don't get paid for doing this, but we would do it for free. And for the most part, are doing it for free. And that is because we deeply love the Bears and we love the fact that you all love it, that you are responding to the content, that you have favorite sections that you call for and want things back. We will try and get the North Watch guys together probably sometime into the new year when everything settles down a little bit to kind of have a round table, finish up the season when heads have cooled a little bit and the results are in. But all of those guys, again, do this on a volunteer basis and have been tremendous for our content and keeping you all informed. So huge thank you to all of them as well. And my wish for you is that you have the happiest kind and the safest kind of evening you can heading into the new year, and that you wake up tomorrow, the sun also rises, and we get to watch even more quality Bears football. That at this point, you're right, Ciaran, we're playing with house money. We didn't expect it. It's really awesome. And my only pointer to you, because I'm never going to tell anybody how to fan, is enjoy it. Like, however you want to enjoy it, because it doesn't come around all that often. And if you don't enjoy it when it's there, it can be a really rough existence as a fan. So thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for hanging with the Bears. And we will see you in 2026.